At 2:17 a.m., I was under the hood of my '92 Mustang when I heard the laughter. Not the good kind. The cruel, sharp kind that cuts through your chest like broken glass. I wiped grease off my hands with an old rag and looked toward our kitchen window, where my wife Megan and her sister Jade were hunched over a phone, giggling like teenagers planning something nasty. "Ryan's such a damn loser," Megan's voice carried through the thin walls. "Look at him out there, fixing that piece of crap car again." I'd been Ryan Mitchell for 38 years, married to Megan for 7, and I'd heard worse. But something in her tone tonight felt different, sharper, more deliberate. Through the window, I watched Jade hold up her phone, angling it toward my workbench in the garage. My blood went cold. My baseball card collection sat there in protective cases, organized by year and value. Next to it, my father's vintage watch. The only thing I had left of him after the cancer took him 3 years ago. My Martin guitar leaned against the wall, the one I'd saved for 2 years to buy. "This is what losers deserve!" Megan shrieked, and I watched in horror as she swept her arm across my workbench. Cards scattered across the concrete floor. The watch, Dad's 1963 Patek Philippe that he'd worn every day for 40 years, sailed through the air and cracked against the garage door. Jade kept filming, cackling as Megan grabbed my guitar and smashed it against the workbench. The neck snapped with a sound like breaking bones. "Oh my God, this is going to get so many views," Jade squealed. "Make sure you say the thing again." Megan posed for the camera, stepping on the scattered baseball cards with her designer heels. "This is what losers deserve. If you can't provide for your woman, you don't deserve nice things." I stood there in my driveway, watching my wife destroy everything I cared about while her sister filmed it for social media. The smart thing would have been to rush in, to stop them. But I'd learned something about Megan over 7 years of marriage. She never did anything without a plan. This wasn't random destruction. This was calculated. So I pulled out my own phone and started recording. #loserhusband, Megan continued, grinding her heel into what looked like my 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card. #know your worth, ladies. Don't settle for men who can't even buy you a decent car. She kicked the broken pieces of my guitar across the garage floor. Each piece that scattered was a memory. Late nights learning songs, the pride I'd felt when I finally mastered Blackbird, the dreams of maybe playing in a bar somewhere. "Ryan thinks this junk is valuable," Megan laughed, holding up one of my card protector cases. "He spends more on this garbage than he does on me. Well, not anymore." She threw the case against the wall. It shattered, and I watched a 1909 Reggie Jackson rookie card flutter to the ground like a dying bird. The video went on for 12 minutes. 12 minutes of systematic destruction while I stood outside, recording everything, my hands shaking with rage and something else, anticipation. Because Megan had just made the biggest mistake of her life. See those worthless baseball cards? I'd had them appraised 6 months ago for insurance purposes. The Mickey Mantle alone was worth $43,000. The Reggie Jackson, $18,000. Dad's watch? The insurance company had valued it at $95,000, and I had documentation for every single item. "There," Megan announced to the camera, surveying the destruction. "Maybe now Ryan will focus on being a real man instead of playing with toys." The live stream ended, and within minutes, I watched the view count climb. 100, 500, 2,000. By the time I walked back inside, stepping carefully over the wreckage of my life, it had hit 10,000 views. Megan and Jade were already in bed, whispering and giggling like they'd just pulled off the heist of the century. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began typing. Not an angry response, not a plea for sympathy. Just a simple message. Interesting evening, documentation to follow. Then I opened my insurance folder, the one Megan didn't know existed, and started scanning appraisal documents. By sunrise, I'd uploaded everything to a secure cloud drive. Photographs, receipts, professional appraisals, even the letter my father had written about the watch's history. Megan's video hit 1 million views by morning. The comments were brutal. "OMG, yes, Queen, teach that loser a lesson. Men need to step up or step aside. Why is she even with this broke?" But I wasn't reading the comments. I was calling my lawyer. Dominic Farrow specialized in what he called digital age destruction cases. He'd made his reputation destroying online bullies and social media scammers. When I showed him the video and my documentation, he smiled like a shark smelling blood. "Ryan," he said, leaning back in his leather chair, "your wife just committed about 17 different crimes on camera. Property destruction, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And that's just for starters. How much did you say those cards were worth?" "The destroyed items total about $890,000, I replied, sliding the appraisal documents across his desk. "That's just what she destroyed last night. I have more in storage." Dominic's smile widened. $890,000? "Ryan, your wife didn't just destroy your property. She committed a felony on camera and posted it online. Megan's video exploded overnight. By the time I got home from Dominic's office, it had 4 million views and climbing. The comments section looked like a feeding frenzy. "Yes, Queen, destroy that man-child. This is what every woman should do to deadbeat husbands. Why does he even have that junk? Grow up, loser!" But buried in the avalanche of support for Megan, I noticed something else. A few voices of dissent. Isn't this just destruction of property? Those baseball cards might actually be worth something. This seems really cruel, even if he is a loser. Megan was riding high. Her follower count had jumped from 12,000 to over 200,000 overnight. Brand representatives were sliding into her DMs, offering sponsorship deals for makeup, clothing, and lifestyle products. She spent the entire day on the phone with marketing executives negotiating contracts. "I'm telling you, Jade," she said, pacing around our living room while I sat quietly at the kitchen table, "this is going to change everything. I could make 6 figures just from the sponsorships. Maybe we should do a follow-up video." Jade, sprawled across our couch like she owned the place, nodded enthusiastically. "Definitely. Maybe film yourself throwing out more of his stuff, or make him apologize on camera." I kept my mouth shut and continued eating my cereal, but inside, I was taking notes. Every word they said was another nail in their coffin. "The best part," Megan continued, "is that Ryan can't do anything about it. What's he gonna do, sue me? With what money? He can barely afford car payments." That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. "Papers filed. Civil suit for $1.7 million in damages. Process server arrives at 3 p.m. Don't react when they're served, just watch." I glanced at the clock. 2:40 p.m. At exactly 3 o'clock, our doorbell rang. Megan frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone, and her new brand partners weren't supposed to call until tomorrow. "Ryan, get the door," she commanded, not looking up from her phone, where she was reading comments and responding to fan messages. I opened the door to find a middle-aged woman in a business suit holding a manila envelope. "Megan Mitchell?" she asked. "That's me," Megan called from the couch, still scrolling through her phone. "You've been served," the woman announced, handing me the envelope. "Civil lawsuit filed in County Superior Court. Have a nice day." The door closed, and silence fell over our living room, like a heavy blanket. Megan slowly looked up from her phone, her face pale. "What the hell is that?" Jade asked, sitting up straight for the first time all day. I opened the envelope and pretended to read it for the first time, though Dominic had already walked me through every page. "It's a lawsuit," I said calmly, "for property destruction, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and—" I flipped through the pages. "About 14 other things." "That's ridiculous," Megan snapped, jumping up and snatching the papers from my hands. "You can't sue me for throwing away your toys." "According to this," I said, pointing to a specific paragraph, "the destroyed property was valued at $890,000. They're seeking $1.7 million in damages." The color drained from Megan's face. $890,000? That's impossible. Those were just old baseball cards and junk. I pulled out my phone and showed her the insurance appraisal photos I'd taken months earlier. That junk included a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card worth $43,000. Dad's watch was a 1903 Patek Philippe worth $95,000. Should I continue? Jade grabbed the lawsuit of papers and started reading, her hands shaking. "Megan, this says they have video evidence, insurance documentation, and professional appraisals. They have everything." "But the video shows you deserved it," Megan protested. "You're a loser who cares more about cards than your wife." I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. "Actually, the video shows you committing multiple felonies while explicitly stating your intent to destroy my property, on camera. in high definition, with 4 million witnesses. My phone rang. Dominic. Ryan, his voice was cheerful. I just got off the phone with the district attorney's office. They're very interested in your wife's video. Destruction of property over $500 is a felony in this state. They're considering charges. I put the phone on speaker so Megan and Jade could hear. Who is this? Megan demanded. Dominic Farrow, attorney at law. And you must be the star of our little viral video. I have to say, Mrs. Mitchell, in 20 years of practice, I've never had a client hand me such a clear-cut case. Usually people try to hide their crimes. You decided to broadcast yours to 4 million people. Jade started crying. Actual tears. Not the fake ones she used to get out of speeding tickets. This is insane, Megan said, but her voice had lost its confident edge. Ryan, call off your lawyer. We can work this out. Actually, Dominic's voice continued through the speaker, Mrs. Mitchell, I'd advise you to contact your own attorney. The civil suit is just the beginning. The criminal charges are going to be much more serious. After I hung up, Megan tried a different approach. She sat next to me on the couch, putting on her sweetest voice, the one she used when she wanted something. Baby, Shion said, placing her hand on my arm. This is crazy. We're married. We can figure this out. I'll replace your stuff. I'll buy you new cards. With what money? I asked. You just told Jade you were going to make 6 figures from sponsorships. But here's the thing about brand partnerships. They don't like being associated with felons. As if on cue, Megan's phone started buzzing. Text after text, email after email. I watched her face fall as she read them. They're all pulling out, she whispered. Every single brand deal. They're canceling the contracts. Bad publicity, I explained. Turns out companies don't want their products associated with property destruction and domestic misuse. Who knew? That night, while Megan and Jade huddled together researching criminal defense attorneys they couldn't afford, I sat in my garage surveying the damage. Broken guitar pieces, scattered cards, the shattered remains of my father's watch. Each destroyed item represented years of careful collecting, saving, and memories. But I wasn't sad anymore. I was methodical. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. No fancy lighting, no script, no dramatic music, just me, sitting on a folding chair in my destroyed garage, speaking directly to the camera. Hi, Internet, I began. My name is Ryan Mitchell. You might have seen a video of my wife destroying my property. I wanted to show you something. I held up the insurance appraisal for the Mickey Mantle card. This is documentation for a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card in mint condition, valued at $43,000. I showed the camera the scattered pieces on the floor. Here's what's left of it. Next, I held up my father's letter, the one he'd written explaining the watch's history, how he'd bought it with his first paycheck as a young engineer, how he'd planned to pass it down through generations. This watch survived World War II, the Korean War, and 40 years of daily wear. I read from the letter. My father wore it on his wedding day, the day I was born, and every day until cancer took his hands too weak to wind it. He left it to me with instructions to care for it and pass it on to my children. I showed the camera the broken pieces scattered across the concrete. The total value of destroyed property was $890,000. But the sentimental value? I paused, looking directly into the lens. That's irreplaceable. I uploaded the video with a simple title, The Other Side of the Story. Within an hour, everything changed. The comments on my video were completely different from the ones on Megan's. Oh my God, that poor man. She destroyed a Mickey Mantle card? That's like burning the Mona Lisa. The letter from his father made me cry. This woman is a monster. But more importantly, people started sharing my video on Megan's original post. The narrative flipped overnight. Suddenly, the comments on her viral video were turning against her. You destroyed almost $1 million worth of stuff? That's not empowering, that's psychotic. This man's father's watch. How could you? I hope he takes everything you own. Megan woke up the next morning to find her follower count dropping by the thousands. The few brand deals she hadn't already lost were officially canceled. Her phone was buzzing with notifications, but not the good kind. Angry messages, death threats, people calling her every name in the book. Ryan, you have to make this stop, she pleaded over breakfast. People are threatening me. They're calling my work, my friends, my family. I didn't tell them to do that, I replied honestly. I just told the truth. But you knew this would happen, I shrugged. You wanted to go viral. Congratulations, you went viral. Jade, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. Megan, we need to talk. Privately. They went into the bedroom and closed the door, but our house had thin walls. I could hear every word of their panicked conversation. This is a disaster, Jade hissed. Do you know what happens if you get convicted of a felony? I could lose my nursing license just for being involved. You weren't involved, Megan protested. You just filmed it. I was an accessory. I encouraged you. It's all on video. We'll say it was a prank. We'll say we didn't know the stuff was valuable. Megan, there are text messages. I literally texted you, make sure you get the expensive crap on camera. How are we going to explain that? I smiled and opened my laptop. Those text messages were about to become very important. See, Megan didn't know that our phone plan included automatic cloud backup of all text messages. And she definitely didn't know that I'd downloaded months of conversations between her and Jade planning this exact scenario. My phone rang. Dominic again. Ryan, I need you to come to my office. The DA wants to meet with you. They're considering felony charges against both your wife and her sister. But first, I need to know, do you have any other evidence we haven't discussed? I looked at my laptop screen, filled with months of text messages between Megan and Jade plotting my humiliation. Actually, I said, I have quite a bit more. Dominic's office felt different this time, more serious. The district attorney, Sarah Chen, sat across from his desk reviewing a thick folder of evidence while I waited nervously in the corner chair. Mr. Mitchell, DA Chen began, your attorney has provided us with some very compelling evidence. But before we proceed with criminal charges, I need to understand the full scope of what happened here. I opened my laptop and pulled up the text message archive. It started about 6 months ago, I explained, scrolling to the earliest conversations between Megan and Jade, right around the time I got the insurance appraisals done. Read this one, Dominic instructed, pointing to a message from Jade dated 3 months earlier. I cleared my throat and read aloud. Jade to Megan, you should totally destroy his stupid cards, make it look like an accident. Film his reaction. And Megan's response? DA Chen asked. I want to hurt him where it counts. He cares more about that junk than me. Maybe if I destroy it, he'll finally snap and I can divorce him for being abusive. The room fell silent. DA Chen made a note in her folder. There's more, I continued, scrolling through weeks of messages. They planned the whole thing. The live stream, the destruction, even the specific items to target. I read another exchange. Megan, which stuff should I destroy first? Jade, definitely the cards, and that ugly watch. Make sure you get the expensive crap on camera. Mr. Mitchell, DA Chen interrupted. Are you telling me your wife and her sister conspired for months to destroy your property, filmed themselves doing it, and posted it online with the specific intent to humiliate you and provoke a violent reaction? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Dominic leaned forward. Sarah, this isn't just property destruction. This is conspiracy, premeditation, and domestic misuse. They were trying to manipulate him into a violent reaction so they could claim he was the misuser. DA Chen closed the folder and looked at me directly. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to be very frank with you. Your wife and her sister committed multiple felonies on camera with clear premeditation. The evidence is overwhelming, but I need to know, do you want us to prosecute this to the full extent of the law? I thought about Megan upstairs, probably still crying over her lost sponsorship deals. I thought about Jade, who had spent years treating me like I was beneath her notice. I thought about my father's broken watch and the Mickey Mantle card that would never be whole again. Yes, I said, I want you to prosecute. Then we'll need you to testify before the grand jury. Can you do that? Absolutely. That afternoon, I came home to find Megan pacing around our living room like a caged animal. Jade sat on the couch, staring at her phone with a look of pure panic. Ryan, Megan said the moment I walked in, we need to talk. I've been thinking about this lawsuit, and maybe we can work something out. I could pay you back for the stuff I broke. With what money? I asked. You lost all your brand deals, remember? I'll get a job. I'll work double shifts. I'll do whatever it takes. I sat down across from her and pulled out my phone, opening the text message archive. Megan, I want you to listen to something. I began reading her own words back to her. I want to hurt him where it counts. He cares more about that junk than me. Maybe if I destroy it, he'll finally snap and I can divorce him for being abusive. Her face went white. Where did you get that? Our phone plan backs up all text messages to the cloud. I've got 6 months of conversations between you and Jade planning this whole thing. Jade dropped her phone. Megan, you told me those messages were private. They were. How was I supposed to know Ryan was spying on us? I wasn't spying. Corrected. I was protecting myself. Turns out that was a smart decision. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Dominic's office. Ryan, his voice was excited. The grand jury just handed down indictments. Felony destruction of property, conspiracy, and domestic misuse charges. The warrants will be issued tomorrow morning. I looked at Megan and Jade, both staring at me with expressions of growing horror. What does that mean? Megan whispered. It means you're going to be arrested, I replied. Both of you. The police arrived at 6 a.m. sharp. I was already awake, drinking coffee at the kitchen table, when I heard the cars pull into our driveway. 3 patrol cars and an unmarked detective vehicle. They weren't taking any chances. Megan and Jade were still asleep when the doorbell rang, followed immediately by heavy knocking and a voice calling, Police, open up! I answered the door in my bathrobe, playing the confused husband perfectly. Good morning, officers. Is there a problem? Detective Rodriguez, a serious woman in her 40s, held up 2 arrest warrants. We're here for Megan Mitchell and Jade Williams. Are they on the premises? They're upstairs sleeping, I replied. What's this about? Felony destruction of property, conspiracy, and domestic misuse charges. We'll need you to wake them up and have them come downstairs. The commotion had already roused them. I could hear frantic whispering from the bedroom, followed by footsteps rushing around upstairs. Megan, Jade, I called up the stairs. The police are here to see you. They came down slowly, Megan in her silk pajamas and Jade in an oversized t-shirt. Both looked like they'd been crying. Megan Mitchell? Detective Rodriguez asked. That's me, Megan replied, her voice barely above a whisper. You're under arrest for felony destruction of property, conspiracy to commit property destruction, and domestic misuse. You have the right to remain silent. As the detective read Megan her rights, another officer approached Jade with a second set of handcuffs. This is insane, Jade protested as they cuffed her hands behind her back. I didn't destroy anything. I just filmed it. Conspiracy and accessory charges, the officer explained. You encouraged and documented the commission of a felony. I watched from the doorway as they led my wife and her sister to separate patrol cars. Megan turned back to look at me, her face streaked with tears and mascara. Ryan, please, she called out. Don't let them do this. I'm your wife. I didn't respond. I just stood there in my bathrobe, sipping my coffee, watching the cars drive away. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. Bail hearing this afternoon, don't attend. Let them sit in county lockup for a few hours to think about their situation. The story hit the local news by noon. Local influencer arrested for destroying husband's $890,000 collection. The video footage of Megan and Jade being led away in handcuffs played on repeat across every station. But the real entertainment was happening online. Someone had leaked the arrest footage, and it was spreading across social media faster than Megan's original destruction video. The comments were brutal. From influencer to inmate in 48 hours. Those handcuffs don't match her outfit. Hope County Jail has good lighting for her selfies. I spent the day cleaning up the garage, carefully collecting every piece of broken memorabilia. Each fragment went into a labeled evidence bag. Dominic wanted everything documented for the civil trial. Around 4 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Ryan, it's Jade. I get one phone call, and I need to talk to you. I'm listening. This is all Megan's fault, she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. The whole thing was her idea. I just went along with it because she's my sister. I didn't know how valuable that stuff was. I swear I didn't know. Jade, you literally texted her to get the expensive crap on camera. I was joking. I didn't mean actually expensive stuff. I could hear other voices in the background. She was calling from the county jail's phone bank. Look, Ryan, what if I testified against Megan? What if I told the DA everything about how she planned this? Would that help my case? And there it was, the betrayal I'd been waiting for. I can't make you any promises, Jade, but I'm sure the DA would be very interested in hearing about Megan's planning process. She's been planning this for months, Jade said, her voice dropping to a whisper. She wanted to make you look like an abusive husband, so she could divorce you and take half of everything. She thought if she could get you to hit her on camera, she'd have leverage. And you went along with this? I thought it was just going to be a prank. I didn't know she was trying to destroy your marriage. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Jade's voice returned, more desperate than before. Ryan, please, I'll do whatever you want. I'll testify against her. I'll pay for damages. Anything. Just please don't let me go to prison over this. I hung up without answering. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Megan. Ryan, baby, please listen to me, she began, her voice shaking. Jade is trying to blame everything on me. But you know that's not true. We're married. We're supposed to be a team. You can't let them destroy our marriage over some old cards and a watch. Some old cards and a watch worth almost $1 million, I corrected. I'll replace them. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Just please call off your lawyer and drop the charges. I can't drop criminal charges, Megan. That's up to the district attorney now. Then talk to them. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I could hear other inmates in the background, probably listening to every word of her conversation. Megan, I have 6 months of text messages where you and Jade planned this entire thing. You wanted to provoke me into hitting you so you could claim I was abusive. You destroyed my father's watch, the only thing I had left of him, for social media clout. What exactly am I supposed to tell the DA? That you're a good person who made a mistake? The line was silent for a long moment. You recorded our text messages? The phone company did. I just downloaded them. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. Those messages were sent through our shared phone plan, which I pay for. I have every legal right to access them. Another long silence. Ryan, she said finally, if you don't drop this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I'll tell them about the time you pushed me during that argument last year. You mean the time you tripped over the coffee table during a fight and blamed me? The incident I recorded on my phone because I knew you'd try to use it against me someday? I could practically hear her world crashing down through the phone. You recorded that too? Megan, I've been recording everything for 2 years. Every fight, every argument, every time you threatened to claim I touched you. I knew this day was coming. The call ended abruptly. Apparently she'd hung up. The bail hearing was a disaster for Megan and Jade, and entertainment gold for everyone else. I watched from the gallery as they were led into the courtroom in orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed behind their backs. Judge Patricia Williams reviewed the charges while both women stood before the bench, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Ms. Mitchell and Ms. Williams, the judge began, you're charged with felony destruction of property valued at $890,000, conspiracy to commit property destruction, and domestic misuse. How do you plead? Megan's court-appointed attorney, a tired-looking public defender who'd clearly drawn the short straw, entered a plea of not guilty. Jade's attorney did the same. Your Honor, D.A. Chen stood up. The state requests high bail for both defendants. This was a premeditated crime, documented extensively through text messages and social media posts. The defendants filmed themselves committing these felonies and broadcast the footage to millions of viewers. They show no remorse and represent a flight risk. Megan's attorney tried to argue for low bail, claiming she was a first-time offender with ties to the community. But then D.A. Chen played her trump card. She read Megan's text messages aloud in open court. I want to hurt him where it counts. D.A. Chen quoted, maybe if I destroy his stuff, he'll finally snap and I can divorce him for being abusive. Your Honor, this wasn't a crime of passion. This was a calculated attempt to manipulate the sufferer into a violent reaction for personal gain. Judge Williams set bail at $50,000 each. Megan's face crumpled when she heard the amount. There was no way she could afford it. But Jade could. And that's where things got interesting. I followed them out to the courthouse steps, where Jade's bail bondsman was waiting with paperwork. As Jade signed the documents that would get her released, I watched Megan realize that her sister was abandoning her. Jade, Megan called out desperately, what about my bail? You can't leave me in there. Jade didn't even look back. I'm sorry, Megan, but I can't afford both of us. I need to protect myself now. I'm your sister. You're the one who got us into this mess. That's when Jade noticed me standing nearby. She walked over, leaving Megan surrounded by reporters and cameras. Ryan, she said quietly, I meant what I said on the phone. I'll testify against Megan. I'll tell the DA everything about how she planned this. Just please help me make a deal. I looked past her to where Megan stood in handcuffs, crying as reporters shouted questions about her viral video and destroyed property. What exactly would you tell them? I asked. Everything. How she's been planning this for months, how she wanted to make you look abusive, how she researched the value of your stuff before destroying it, how she coached me on what to say during the video. She researched the values? Jade nodded eagerly. She looked up baseball card prices online. She knew exactly how much that Mickey Mantle card was worth. She destroyed it specifically because it was the most valuable thing you owned. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Would you be willing to repeat that statement to my attorney? Yes, absolutely. Anything to help my case. As Jade spoke into my phone camera, confessing to months of premeditation and conspiracy, I watched Megan being led back to the police car. She'd be spending at least another week in county jail while her public defender tried to figure out how to defend the indefensible. The video of Jade's confession was online within an hour. Dominic had edited it down to the most damaging quotes and posted it across every social media platform with the caption, "Sister throws sister under the bus after viral destruction video leads to felony charges." The internet lost its mind. The story had everything people loved: betrayal, revenge, family drama, and a clear villain getting their comeuppance. Jade betrayal started trending alongside #loser deserves better and karma is real. But the real entertainment came from Megan's supporters, the few who remained, turning on Jade with vengeance. The comments on Jade's confession video were savage. What a backstabbing sister. Megan trusted you and you sold her out. Hope the 30 pieces of silver were worth it. Meanwhile, Megan's original supporters were abandoning ship in droves. Her follower count, which had peaked at 300,000 during the initial viral explosion, had crashed to under 50,000 and was still falling. That evening, I got a call from an unexpected source, Megan's mother, Linda. "Ryan," she said, her voice strained, "I just saw the news about Megan and Jade. I need to know, is this really as bad as it looks?" I'd always liked Linda. She was the opposite of her daughters, humble, hardworking, and genuinely kind. She'd raised Megan and Jade as a single mother after their father left when they were teenagers. "Linda, I'm sorry you have to see this. But yes, it's exactly as bad as it looks. Maybe worse. The news said they destroyed almost $1 million worth of your things. $890,000, including my father's watch." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "Your father's watch? Oh, Ryan, I'm so sorry. I know how much that meant to you." "They planned the whole thing, Linda, for months. I have text messages proving it. I don't understand. I raised them better than this. How did they become so cruel?" I didn't have an answer for that, but I did have a question for her. "Linda, can I ask you something? Did Megan ever tell you she was planning to divorce me? She mentioned it a few times. She said you weren't ambitious enough for her, that you were holding her back from becoming successful. Did she ever say anything about trying to make me look abusive?" Another long pause. "Oh, God. Ryan, she asked me hypothetical questions about domestic misuse cases, about how women could protect themselves if their husbands became violent. I thought she was just being paranoid. She was planning to frame me, Linda. The whole destruction video was designed to provoke me into touching her so she could claim I was abusive. That's monstrous. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Linda was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "Ryan, I want you to know that I support you completely. What my daughters did was unforgivable. If there's anything I can do to help your case, please let me know." After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house, thinking about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, I was the loser husband being mocked by millions of people online. Now I was the sympathetic sufferer of a calculated conspiracy, with my wife sitting in jail and her sister desperately trying to save herself by throwing Megan under the bus. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. "DA wants to meet tomorrow. Jade's attorney contacted them about a plea deal. This is about to get very interesting." The meeting with DA Chen took place in her downtown office, a sterile government building that smelled like coffee and desperation. Jade sat across from us with her attorney, a nervous-looking man named Paul Henderson, who clearly wished he'd chosen a different career. "Ms. Williams," DA Chen began, "your attorney says you want to cooperate with our investigation. Before we discuss any deals, I need to know exactly what you're offering." Jade looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed, her designer clothes replaced with a cheap outfit her mother had brought to the jail. "I can tell you everything about how Megan planned the destruction," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's been planning this for months. She researched the value of Ryan's stuff online. She wanted to make him look abusive so she could divorce him and take half his money. And your role in this conspiracy? I went along with it. She's my sister. She told me it would be funny that Ryan deserved it for being a loser husband. I didn't know how valuable his stuff really was." DHN opened a thick folder and pulled out printed copies of text messages. "Ms. Williams, I have here a text you sent to your sister saying, 'Make sure you get the expensive crap on camera.' How do you explain that?" Jade's face crumpled. "I was joking. I didn't mean actually expensive stuff. But you just told me your sister researched the values beforehand. So you knew she knew how valuable these items were." Yes, but Ms. Williams, you're either lying to me now or you were lying in your text messages. Which is it?" Jade's attorney leaned over and whispered something in her ear. She nodded and took a deep breath. "Okay, yes, I knew some of the stuff was valuable. Megan showed me the baseball card prices she'd looked up online. She was excited about destroying the most expensive ones. But I swear I didn't know about the watch being worth $95,000. DHN made a note in her file. "What else can you tell me about your sister's planning?" She'd been talking about divorcing Ryan for months. She said he was holding her back from becoming a successful influencer. She wanted to find a way to make him look bad so she could get more money in the divorce. And the destruction video was part of that plan? Yes. She thought if she could make him angry enough to punch her, she could claim he was abusive. She had me ready to call 911 if he tried to stop us. I felt my hands clench into fists under the table. The level of calculation was breathtaking. "Ms. Williams," DHN continued, "are you willing to testify to all of this in court?" "Yes. If it helps my case, yes." "And you understand that your sister will likely go to prison if you testify against her?" Jade hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. "She got us into this mess. I can't go to prison because of her bad decisions." DHN looked at Jade's attorney. "Mr. Henderson, here's what we're prepared to offer. Ms. Williams pleads guilty to conspiracy charges, gets 2 years probation and community service, pays restitution for her share of the damages. In exchange, she testifies truthfully about your sister's planning and premeditation." "What would her share of restitution be?" Henderson asked. $200,000. Jade's face went white. "200,000? I don't have that kind of money. You'll have to figure that out," DHN replied coldly. "The alternative is going to trial on felony charges and facing 5 to 10 years in prison." Henderson whispered urgently in Jade's ear for several minutes. Finally, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "I'll take the deal. Excellent. We'll need your full cooperation for the next 6 months as we build the case against your sister." After the meeting, I walked out of the courthouse feeling like I just watched a family destroy itself from the inside. Jade had chosen to save herself by throwing Megan under the bus, and Megan was sitting in county jail with no idea that her own sister had just sealed her fate. My phone rang as I reached my car. Unknown number. "Ryan, it's me." Megan's voice sounded hollow, defeated. "How are you calling me? I thought you only got one call." "I'm using my cellmate's phone time. Ryan, please, I'm begging you. I can't stay in here. The other inmates know about my video. They're calling me princess and making my life hell." "Maybe you should have thought about that before destroying my father's watch on camera. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, can't we work something out? I'll do anything you want. I'll give you a divorce and not ask for anything. I'll disappear from your life completely." "Megan, it's too late for deals. Your sister just agreed to testify against you in exchange for a plea bargain." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute. "Jade testified against me? She told the DA everything. How you planned this for months, how you researched the values of my collection, how you wanted to provoke me into punching you. Everything." "That lying witch!" Megan screamed, loud enough that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I'm her sister. How could she do this to me?" "The same way you could destroy my father's watch for social media clout, I guess." "Ryan, please, you have to believe me. Whatever Jade told them, she's lying to save herself. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just angry and I made a stupid mistake." "A stupid mistake that you planned for months and documented in text messages?" "Those texts were taken out of context. Megan, I heard the recording of Jade's testimony. She told them you looked up baseball card prices online before destroying them. You knew exactly how much damage you were doing. Another long silence. How much trouble am I in? She asked finally, her voice small and scared. The DA is seeking 5 to 10 years. With Jade's testimony about premeditation, you'll probably get the full sentence. I heard her start crying, not the manipulative tears she'd used during our marriage, but genuine sobs of despair. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I wanted to feel powerful for once. I wanted to matter. You mattered, Megan. You were my wife. But that wasn't enough for you. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The call ended, and I sat in my car in the courthouse parking lot, feeling something I hadn't expected. Pity. Not forgiveness. What Megan had done was unforgivable. But pity for a woman who had destroyed her entire life chasing social media fame and the approval of strangers. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. Civil trial scheduled for next month. With Jade's testimony, we should get the full $1.7 million judgment. Start thinking about what you want to do with the money. I started my car and drove home to my quiet, empty house. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful instead of oppressive. The courtroom was packed for Megan's trial. News crews lined the hallway outside, and the gallery was filled with a mix of reporters, curious onlookers, and internet personalities who had followed the story from the beginning. Someone had even created a hashtag, #LoserGetsJustice. Megan looked terrible. 3 weeks in county jail had stripped away all her influencer polish. Her hair was unwashed, her orange jumpsuit hung loose on her shrinking frame, and she had dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could have hidden. Her public defender, Robert Martinez, had done his best with an impossible case. But when your client commits multiple felonies on camera and posts the evidence online, there's only so much you can do. D.A. Chen's opening statement was devastating. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about calculated cruelty. The defendant didn't destroy her husband's property in a moment of anger. She planned it for months, researched the value of his belongings, and filmed herself committing these crimes for social media attention. This wasn't a domestic dispute. It was domestic terrorism. Martinez tried to paint Megan as a frustrated wife who made a terrible mistake, but his heart wasn't in it. Everyone in that courtroom had seen the video. Everyone had read the text messages. Everyone knew exactly who Megan Mitchell really was. The prosecution's case was airtight. They played the destruction video in its entirety, showing Megan laughing as she ground her heel into my Mickey Mantle card and smashed my father's watch against the garage door. They read the text messages where she and Jade planned the destruction. They brought in appraisers who testified to the exact value of each destroyed item. But the most damaging testimony came from Jade. She walked into that courtroom wearing a conservative blue dress, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, looking nothing like the party girl who had filmed her sister's rampage 3 months earlier. Her voice shook as she raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. Ms. Williams, D.A. Chen began, please tell the jury about your sister's state of mind in the months leading up to the destruction of Mr. Mitchell's property. She was angry, Jade replied, not looking at Megan. She felt like Ryan was holding her back from becoming a successful influencer. She wanted to divorce him, but she was worried about the financial settlement. Did she discuss any plans to improve her position in a potential divorce? Yes. She said if she could make Ryan look abusive, she could get more money and maybe even keep the house. And how did she plan to make him look abusive? Jade's voice dropped to almost a whisper. She wanted to provoke him into punching her. She thought if she destroyed his most valuable possessions on camera, he would lose control and attack her. A murmur went through the courtroom. Even though everyone knew this was coming, hearing it spoken aloud was still shocking. Ms. Williams, did your sister research the value of Mr. Mitchell's belongings before destroying them? Yes, she spent hours online looking up baseball card prices. She knew the Mickey Mantle card was worth over $40,000. She destroyed it first because she wanted to hurt him as much as possible. And the watch? She knew it was valuable, but she destroyed it because it was from his dead father. She wanted to destroy something that could never be replaced. I watched Megan's face as her sister testified. She looked like she was watching her own execution. Martinez tried his best during cross-examination, but Jade stuck to her story. Yes, she had participated in the destruction. Yes, she had filmed it. But it had all been Megan's idea, Megan's plan, Megan's decision to turn their marriage into a viral video. Ms. Williams, Martinez asked, isn't it true that you agreed to testify against your sister in exchange for a reduced sentence? Yes. So you have every incentive to lie to make your sister look worse than she really is? I'm not lying, Jade replied firmly. Everything I've said is true. I have the text messages to prove it. When it was my turn to testify, I felt strangely calm. I had been preparing for this moment for months, and I was ready. Mr. Mitchell, DHN asked, can you describe your relationship with your wife in the months before the destruction? It was strained, I replied honestly. Megan was frustrated with her influencer career. She felt like I wasn't supportive enough of her goals. We argued frequently. Did these arguments ever become physical? No. Megan sometimes threatened to claim I had hit her, but I never laid a hand on her. I actually started recording our arguments because I was afraid she would make false accusations. And these recordings? They show that every single fight followed the same pattern. Megan would escalate the argument, sometimes throwing things or breaking objects, then threaten to call the police and claim I had misused her. DHN played several of these recordings for the jury. In each one you could hear Megan screaming, the sound of objects breaking, and then her voice saying things like, I should call the cops and tell them you touched me, or no one would believe you over me. The recordings were devastating. They showed a clear pattern of manipulation and threats, building up to the night she finally carried out her plan. Mr. Mitchell, DHN continued, can you tell the jury about the sentimental value of the destroyed items? I pulled out my father's letter and read it aloud, my voice breaking slightly when I reached the part about passing the watch down through generations. Several jurors were visibly moved. That watch survived 2 wars and 40 years of daily wear, I concluded. It was the only thing I had left of my father. And Megan destroyed it for social media content. Martinez's cross-examination was half-hearted. What was he going to ask me? Whether I deserved to have my property destroyed? Whether my father's watch wasn't really that important? Whether planning someone's humiliation for months was somehow justified? The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Megan collapsed when she heard the verdict. Her mother, who had been sitting in the gallery, started crying. Jade, who had been waiting outside to avoid seeing her sister, probably felt a mix of relief and guilt. Judge Williams scheduled sentencing for the following week, but everyone knew what was coming. With the premeditation evidence and Jade's testimony, Megan was looking at the maximum sentence, 10 years in state prison. I walked out of that courthouse feeling like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for months. Justice wasn't going to bring back my father's watch or restore my destroyed collection, but it felt good to know that actions had consequences, even in the age of viral videos and social media fame. Sentencing day arrived gray and cold, matching the mood in the courthouse. The same crowd had gathered. Reporters, internet personalities, and curious onlookers who had followed the story from viral video to criminal conviction. But this time, there was a different energy in the air. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was the final chapter of a woman's complete destruction. Megan had lost even more weight during the week between verdict and sentencing. She looked fragile in her orange jumpsuit, like a strong wind might blow her away. Her mother sat in the front row, clutching tissues and looking like she'd aged a decade in the past month. Judge Williams called the court to order and asked if anyone wanted to make a statement before sentencing. D.A. Chen stood first. Your Honor, the defendant's crimes were not committed in a moment of passion or desperation. They were planned, calculated, and executed with malicious intent. She destroyed nearly $1 million worth of property, documented her crimes for social media attention, and attempted to manipulate her husband into a violent reaction for personal gain. The state recommends the maximum sentence of 10 years in state prison. Martinez stood next, making a final plea for mercy. Your Honor, my client is a first-time offender who made terrible decisions but doesn't deserve to have her life destroyed. She's already lost her marriage, her career, her reputation, and her relationship with her sister. Prison time would serve no purpose except revenge. Then Judge Williams asked the question I'd been dreading. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to make a sufferer impact statement? I had written and rewritten my statement dozens of times. Part of me wanted to be merciful, to ask for a lighter sentence. Megan was already destroyed. Her life was over, whether she got 2 years or 10. But then I thought about my father's watch, broken on the garage floor. I thought about the months of planning, the calculated cruelty, the attempt to frame me as a misuser. I stood up and walked to the podium. Your Honor, 3 months ago, I was married to a woman I thought I knew. I believed she was capable of cruelty, but I never imagined she was capable of this level of calculation and manipulation. I pulled out my father's letter and held it up for the court to see. This letter contains my father's instructions for caring for his watch and passing it down to future generations. Megan didn't just destroy a valuable timepiece. She destroyed a family legacy that can never be replaced. I looked directly at Megan for the first time since the trial began. She was crying, but I felt nothing. The defendant planned this destruction for months. She researched the value of my belongings, coordinated with her sister, and executed her plan with precision. This wasn't a moment of anger. It was domestic terrorism designed to humiliate me and provoke a violent reaction she could use against me. I paused, letting that sink in. Your Honor, I don't want revenge. I want justice. I want consequences that match the calculation and cruelty of the crimes. The defendant destroyed my property, my marriage, and my trust in human decency. She deserves the maximum sentence. I returned to my seat as Judge Williams reviewed her notes. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Megan's quiet sobbing. Ms. Mitchell, the judge began, please stand for sentencing. Megan struggled to her feet, supported by her attorney. I have presided over thousands of cases in my 30 years on the bench, Judge Williams continued, but I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty between spouses. You didn't just destroy property. You attempted to destroy a human being for social media attention. Megan's legs gave out, and Martinez had to help her stay upright. The court sentences you to the maximum term of 10 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 7 years. You will also pay full restitution of $890,000 to the sufferer. The gavel came down with finality. Megan collapsed completely, and the bailiffs had to carry her from the courtroom as reporters shouted questions and cameras flashed. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. The civil trial was still coming. Dominic was confident we'd get the full $1.7 million judgment, but the criminal case was over. Megan would spend the next 7 to 10 years in prison, and I would spend that time rebuilding my life. 6 months later, I stood in the garage of my new house, a modest place in a quiet neighborhood where nobody knew about viral videos or destroyed collections. I'd used part of the civil judgment money to buy it outright, along with a new workshop where I could restore classic cars in peace. The civil trial had been even easier than the criminal case. With Megan already convicted and Jade's testimony on record, the jury awarded me the full $1.7 million in damages. Megan's house, car, and bank accounts had been seized to pay the judgment. Jade was working double shifts as a nurse to pay her share of the restitution, and would be for the next 10 years. I'd started a new collection, nothing too valuable this time, just items that brought me joy rather than investment potential. I'd learned my lesson about trusting someone else with the things I cared about. My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a social media post. I almost ignored it. I'd learned to avoid most internet commentary about my situation, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a news article. Viral destroyer Megan Mitchell attacked in prison. The story was brief. Apparently, Megan had been attacked by fellow inmates who recognized her from the viral videos. She was in the prison hospital with a broken nose and fractured ribs. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no regret. Just emptiness where my anger used to be. The article mentioned that Megan had been trying to rebuild her image from prison, posting letters on social media through friends claiming she was a changed person who deserved forgiveness. The internet wasn't buying it. Her remaining followers had long since moved on to other entertainment. Jade had tried to contact me several times over the past few months, always with the same message. She was sorry, she wanted to make amends, she hoped we could eventually be friends again. I never responded. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. I closed the article and went back to work on the 19-son Camaro I was restoring. It was therapeutic, taking something broken and making it whole again. The car had been neglected and misused by previous owners, but with patience and care, it was becoming beautiful again. My phone rang. Dominic. Ryan, I have interesting news. Megan's attorney contacted me about a possible early release program. Apparently, she's been a model prisoner and wants to apply for parole after serving only 3 years. And they want you to write a letter supporting her application. They think it would carry weight with the parole board if the sufferer advocated for her release. I laughed. Actually, laughed out loud for the first time in months. Dominic, what do you think the chances are that I'll write a letter supporting Megan's early release? I told them 0, but they wanted me to ask anyway. You can tell them I said this. Megan planned her crimes for months, executed them with precision, and showed no remorse until she got caught. She can serve her full sentence. I'll pass that along. After we hung up, I returned to working on the Camaro. The engine was finally running smoothly after weeks of careful rebuilding. It would never be worth as much as my destroyed baseball cards, but it was mine, and I'd created its value with my own hands. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset over my new neighborhood. Kids were playing in yards, couples were walking dogs, and life was happening all around me. Normal, quiet, peaceful life. I thought about the man I'd been a year ago. Married to a woman who despised me, surrounded by possessions I treasured but couldn't protect, living in fear of the next humiliation. That man was gone, destroyed as completely as my father's watch. The man who remained was harder, wiser, and infinitely more careful about who he trusted. He lived alone but wasn't lonely. He worked with his hands and found satisfaction in creating rather than collecting. He'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from an unknown number. Ryan, this is Megan. I'm using a friend's phone to contact you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. Not because I want anything from you, but because you deserve better than what I did to you. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations were over, and some apologies came too late to matter. I finished my beer and went inside to my quiet house where my new collection waited. A few vintage tools, some old books, and a framed photo of my father wearing his watch. Small things, meaningful things, safe things. In the morning, I'd go back to work on the Camaro. In the evening, I'd sit on my porch and watch the world go by. Next week, I'd start dating again, carefully, slowly, with eyes wide open. Megan had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying herself instead. Jade had betrayed her sister and lost her family. The internet had moved on to new entertainment, new sufferers, new viral videos. But I was still here, still building, still moving forward. They'd called me a loser, but I'd kept all the receipts. And in the end, the receipts were all that mattered.